Auschwitz, love was illegal, compassion was punishable, and kindness, if it existed at all, was hidden behind a wall of brutality. Yet in 1942, in the middle of that living nightmare, something impossible happened. A young Jewish woman survived, not because of luck alone, but because a Nazi officer noticed her. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a savior. He was part of the machine that was designed to kill her. And still, he changed her fate. This is the story of Helena Citrónová and the man who kept her alive. In 1942, the Nazis were in full control of the machinery of death. Auschwitz was no longer just a camp. It was a system, a factory of murder built with chilling efficiency. When Helena Citrónová arrived, she was 19 years old, a young woman who had dreams, family, a life, and suddenly found herself stripped of everything. She was no longer a person. She became a number. She became a body in a line, a name that could be erased, a future that could be taken at any moment. Her world shrank to one constant truth: you survive only if someone allows you to. And in Auschwitz, the people who held that power were not human beings in the way we understand them. They were officers. They were guards. They were the very embodiment of a system built to destroy. Every day, Helena saw the same horrors: the smoke rising from the chimneys, the screaming, the roll calls, the brutal beatings. Every day, she witnessed the truth that no one could deny. Auschwitz was not a place where people lived. It was a place where people were erased. Then, one day, something changed. It was the birthday of a young SS officer named Franz Wunsch. On that day, prisoners were ordered to perform for the officers. Some were forced to dance. Some were forced to recite. Some were forced to entertain the people who were responsible for their suffering. Helena was ordered to sing. There was no choice. Refusal was not an option. In Auschwitz, refusal meant punishment or death. So she sang, not because she wanted to, not because she believed it would save her, but because she had no other choice. Her voice rose above the noise of the camp, above the barking orders, above the boots, above the smoke. It cut through the chaos like a single bright thread of humanity. And for reasons no one can fully explain, it reached the heart of one officer. Franz Wunsch heard her voice. He stopped seeing a prisoner. He began seeing a person. And in a place where human beings were meant to be invisible, that was a dangerous shift, because the moment a guard saw a prisoner as human, everything changed. After that day, Franz Wunsch began to act differently. Around Helena, he started to protect her, quietly, secretly. He arranged for her to be assigned to less deadly work. He intervened when other guards threatened her. Every time he did something like this, he risked his own life, because helping a Jewish prisoner was not just forbidden, it was punishable. It could cost him everything, but he did it anyway. Why? No one can fully know. Was it love? Was it obsession? Was it guilt? Was it a moment of humanity in a man trained to destroy? It may have been all of these things at once. What is clear is this: in Auschwitz, a single act of kindness was not simple. It was dangerous. It was complicated. It was wrong in a world that demanded absolute cruelty. And Helena understood this better than anyone. She knew what his protection meant. She knew what it cost him. She also knew what it cost her, because accepting help from the enemy is not freedom. It is survival. The most shocking moment of their story happened when Helena's sister was selected. The line moved forward. One by one, prisoners were being chosen. The fate of those selected was always the same: the gas chambers. Helena watched as her sister stepped forward. The world blurred. The screams grew louder. The air grew heavier. And then, in the most impossible moment, something happened that no one could have predicted. Franz Wunsch stepped forward. He pulled Helena's sister out of the line, in full view, in front of other guards, in front of prisoners, in the most public, most dangerous way possible. He saved her, not secretly, not quietly, without hiding. This was not a hidden act of kindness. This was a bold act of defiance, a single moment that changed two lives forever. The consequences could have been deadly, and yet it happened because in Auschwitz, where the logic of evil ruled everything, a single human decision shattered the rules. Helena survived the war. Her sister survived, but their survival was not a victory. It was not a happy ending. It was a reminder of how the world had failed them, because the fact remained: a Nazi officer had saved them, and that truth was not clean. It was not simple. It did not fit the story the world expected. The world wanted monsters. It wanted heroes. It wanted clear lines. But Helena's story refused to be neat. She had survived, and her survival was tied to a man who was part of the machine that killed millions. So, what was her relationship with him? Was it love? Was it gratitude? Was it fear? Or was it simply the brutal reality of survival? The answer is uncomfortable, because survival under the most extreme conditions is never clean. It is never pure. It is never simple. It is messy. It is human. And it forces us to confront the reality that sometimes the line between victim and survivor is shaped by the choices of others and not by our own. After the war, the truth returned. Franz Wunsch was arrested and put on trial in Vienna. The world expected one thing. They expected Helena to condemn him completely, to stand before the court and say, he is a monster. And in many ways, he was. But Helena's story was not a story of monsters and angels. It was a story of human complexity. When she was called to testify, she spoke with honesty. She did not defend him. She did not excuse the horrors of Auschwitz. She did not say that what he did made up for everything else. But she did say the truth. He saved my life. That simple sentence made the courtroom fall silent, not because people felt relieved, but because they were uncomfortable, because her testimony broke the story the world wanted. It forced people to confront a truth they did not want to face, even in a place built for absolute evil. There were moments of humanity, not enough to change the system, not enough to make it good, but enough to challenge the idea that everything was purely black and white. Wunsch was convicted for his crimes, and Helena went on with her life. So, what is this story really about? It is not a story of love conquering evil. It is not a story of romance in the face of horror. It is a story of survival. A story of how human beings can be broken into pieces and still cling to life. It is a reminder that the Holocaust was not only a tragedy of death, it was a tragedy of humanity. It destroyed people's ability to trust. It forced victims to make impossible choices. It forced them to accept help from the very people who were responsible for their suffering. It made survival into something morally complicated, and it made truth into something that could not be clean. Helena Citrónová did not become a symbol. She did not become a lesson. She became a reminder that survival under evil does not always look noble, that sometimes the only way to live is to accept the mercy of the one who represents the system that wants you dead, that sometimes the line between victim and survivor is not defined by courage or purity, but by the cruel randomness of life and by the choices of others. Helena's story is one of the most unsettling reminders of Auschwitz, that even in the heart of hell, human behavior could still defy categories, not to soften the horror, not to excuse it, but to expose how complex, disturbing, and morally unbearable survival itself can be. Because sometimes the truth refuses to be clean, and sometimes humanity appears where it should not exist at all.